Yes, we are live. This is F1 Grandstand. This is your daily F1 news. And boy, have we got a lot to talk about. The Red Bull Riddle. Just why have Red Bull gone from a third place, fourth place standard team to right to the top with Max Verstappen behind the wheel? What is the secret? We think we know the answer. We're going to be getting into that. We're also going to be talking about Franco Colapinto and his disobedience in Austin, Texas. And of course, the big story of the day. Well, it's all about Tapegate, right? It's McLaren's tape on the pit wall and Red Bull engineers trying to interfere, and that huge fine that Red Bull received. Now we are going to be talking about all of it. It's a jam-packed show, so thank you for joining us here at F1 Grandstand. If you are an F1 fan, and of course you're in the right place, please smash a like on the video. Make sure you hit the bell so you can keep up to date with everything that's going on when we go live. It makes a huge difference to the channel. Thank you so much for all your support. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, we're going to start with the Red Bull Riddle. So, this uptick, this absolute uptick in form with the Red Bull. We see McLaren dominate all season, and then all of a sudden, we see Max Verstappen taking poles, winning races from the front, finishing P2 as well, like just scoring points for fun and really taking McLaren to school. But what's the secret? What is the secret? We think we know. Hey guys in the chat, hey Triple X, welcome to the chat. Gemma's in there as well. Hello Gemma, nice to have you with us. Yeah, well, is it a bit of cheating? I'm not sure. I'm going to get into it. I'll tell you what the answer is. So the crux of it is, it comes down to ride height. We're in the ground effect era of Formula One cars, where ride height is the most important thing to suck that car to the ground using the active aero. Hey, Destroy Television, that using the active aero and the channels in the floor panels. Ground effect. We're losing that in 2026, but whilst we're in 2025, it's really important. And ride height is significantly important within that. Now, let's get into the article at motorsport.com. So let me try and explain it using their words. So they've improved the car. And so what's happened is Andrea Stella, team principal at McLaren, has been talking quite candidly about it because they also solved the ride height issue, and we're going to get into it. So first of all, let's talk about what Andrea Stella says. I think they've improved the car. It's because they might have fixed some potential aerodynamic issues, Stella said. We know, like I said before, that there was a new floor in Monza, ground effect, and a new front wing in Singapore. And also, I think their drivers seem to be much more vocal about ride and about grounding. So it could be that they have simply understood that this generation of cars and their own car as well needs to be run challenging some aspects like ride heights. For me, if I needed to, or if I had to speculate, this would be where I put my dollar if it was betting. So the thing about the ride height is it's about plank wear, and this is the problem that Ferrari have had, and that maybe even Red Bull have had. Now, where they measure the measuring points of that plank wear, they start off with a 10mm plank underneath that car. They're allowed to lose 1mm of wear throughout a race, so it has to be 9mm. But where they measure the plank wear is basically under where the drivers sit, because that's where the maximum downforce is, where the weight is, and that's where the balance of the car is, how you get the balance for the car. So what the challenge is for the teams is to allow for plank wear at the front of the car, but not at the measuring points underneath the driver's seat. Now, this is actually quite a challenging problem, and McLaren mastered it. They managed to get their plank wear at the front of the plank at the front of the car, but without getting anywhere underneath the driver's seat. Ferrari couldn't manage it. That's why Ferrari got disqualified in China, right? And that's why they've had to run their car at a much higher ride height because of the plank wear. Now, the main thing is this new floor that came in Monza for that Red Bull, which was a Christian Horner upgrade, was part of the solution. But the real trick is that they've managed to shift the plank wear to the front of the car and retain the 10mm plank under the driver's seat. Now, how have they done that? Well, if you look at how Max Verstappen likes his car set up, he likes his front end to be where all the downforce is. He likes a very, very positive front end of the car. And we've seen new wings that Red Bull have brought as well to allow for that uber grip front end of the car, which makes the car super twitchy, which is probably why Yuki Tsunoda is struggling with it. But Max likes it that way. So it's all about shifting the plank wear to the front of the car. So this is what Sauber sporting director Ineke Ruder was saying. Most teams experience the greatest wear on the rear half of the plank, but McLaren has for some time already managed to wear the front of the plank more, which has several benefits. It's inherent in the car, but there are some mechanisms by which, with the stiffness of the suspension, you try to make it so that your weak point doesn't get as loaded as possible, Ruder explained in Austin. That, he said, is crucial. Whichever team has managed to put it to the front, talking about plank wear, that means they're actually able to run the car lower than the rest of us. So this is something quite clever. Whoever has managed to shift the wear to the front is probably able to run the car lower than the rest of us and thus getting a competitive advantage, which means improving the ground effect. And that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is what Red Bull have managed. How techie is that? Do I like getting techie? Sometimes, but that's what it is. Red Bull have managed to shift the wear of the plank to the front, which means they've been able to lower the ride height of the car at the rear because they're not worried about plank wear further towards the rear of the car under the driver, which is where they measure it. And that, my friends, is why Christian Horner's new floor upgrade has changed the game for Red Bull this season. It wasn't even a Laurent Mekies upgrade, it's the Christian Horner upgrade, so maybe he was the mastermind behind it, but it all comes down to plank wear. Yeah, yes, Cal, getting ready for Mexico, and I think Max has got this in the bag. And Triplet says Max is practically playing a sniper with 25 DPI. Yeah, but that's the thing. So they've managed to shift the balance of that aero to wear the plank at the front so they can run the car lower, which means their ground effect is better, which means the car sticks to the road better, which means you can go around corners faster. That's the basic principles of ground effect era of cars. So that is what Red Bull have managed to achieve. With the new floor and the more aggressive front wings, that's what they've done. McLaren did this earlier on in the season. They did it first, which is why they've been so dominant. And here's the real problem. Right. So Red Bull are still bringing upgrades to that RB21 till the end of the season because Max Verstappen is on a charge for the World Drivers' Championship. Unfortunately for McLaren, no more upgrades. They thought they were so far ahead they didn't need to. And obviously with winning the World Constructors title, they probably thought, well, now it's just down to the drivers. So that is what is at play. So yeah, so the Red Bull have mastered how to increase their ground effect on that car with 5 races to go, with 6 races, well actually with 9 races to go. And Red Bull and McLaren aren't bringing any more upgrades. So we even had Helmut Marko, the Dark Lord himself, even admitted it in Austin, Texas. He was asked the question, so have you lowered the ride height of the Red Bull? Is it a ride height advantage? And he said, you're probably not wrong. Yeah, so he's basically admitted that it is a lower ride height and they're able to do that. And the way they've done that is by changing how and where the plank wear happens on that Red Bull. And Helmut Marko basically admitted that's what it is. So what does that mean for Mighty Max? Well, it means for Mighty Max that he has not only got probably the best car on the grid right now for him, for his driving style and how he likes the car set up, but it also means that because McLaren aren't bringing any upgrades, that Max Verstappen absolutely has the best chance to cause the biggest upset in Formula One history since 2021, right? He could win the World Drivers' Championship, and he could be dominant for the last 5 races. Which brings me on actually to what Zach Brown and McLaren have been talking about. So speaking about McLaren, Zach saying no more upgrades, he also pretty much has thrown Oscar Piastri under the bus with his performance in Austin, Texas. He basically said, and Andrea Stella said the same thing, the car's good. The car could have won in Austin. Oscar Piastri's pace had nothing to do with the car. It was to do with his driving. He basically said, you know, there's no more upgrades needed for the car. He can win the World Drivers' Championship, but Austin, Texas was basically didn't suit his driving style. It was all down to his skill on that track. Same with Lando Norris. There was no difference between the cars. Ooh, really? Ooh, so at a time when Oscar Piastri is literally at his lowest ebb, where they could have said something about Oscar's, you know, performance of car or something. They basically said, nah, Oscar, even though we know you're going through a really tough time, it's all you, son. It's all you. Yeah, Lando took you to school. It was all you. They didn't even mention about the tyre strategy which affected Oscar Piastri. The fact that he was on the worst tyre strategy, that he got the soft tyres for the final stint after all the grip had been laid down on the track. So the advantage of the softs was basically negated because the mediums were just, well, better later in the race. So, yeah. Oh, and then, Triplex says, yeah, Lando said it before. My car isn't slow. I am. Basically, it's probably true. That McLaren is still on a par probably with the Red Bull. Red Bull have caught up and built a car and delivered a car that Max likes. But that McLaren is still a dominant car. We all know Lando and Oscar aren't God tier drivers. They're great drivers, but they're not God tier like Max. So bring it on to Mexico. That's what I've got to say. Bring it on. The racing is gonna happen. You know, Max might take them all to school again. And yes, DT, they don't have Oscar's back. That's the point. And I think at a time when Oscar needs an arm around his shoulder by Andrea Stella or Zach Brown to say, look, we've got you. We're going to give you everything you possibly need to win the World Drivers' Championship. The same conversation with Lando. We're going to give you everything you need to win the World Drivers' Championship. And it just comes down to racing at that point. But we are fully supportive. We're here for you. We're going to protect you in the press. And here's the thing that what they should be doing for both drivers. If I'm running a team in F1 and both my drivers are battling it out for the World Drivers' Championship, I am protecting both of them. Right? I'm giving them both the best chance to go out and race and win. I want them both on the top of their game. I don't want to favour one driver. I want them both to go out and race. And may the best man win. And I think that's the problem. Triple X says McLaren literally has Max's back. Yeah, they do. And so did Ferrari with Charles Leclerc literally blocking Lando Norris for 20 laps, allowing him to scamper away. But this is why qualifying is going to be so important in Mexico, because we all know that where we're at now with DRS cars and these tracks, so there isn't a lot of overtaking, really. We get a lot of DRS trains where the DRS advantage is basically negated. And Mexico is going to be the same. So it's going to come down to qualifying performance. And here's the thing. Oscar Piastri is really... He's just not been able to bring a lap together. Since crashing in Baku in qualifying, Piastri's just not been able to bring a quick lap in qualifying. Lando Norris has always been a 0.2 or a 0.5 quicker than him. So Oscar needs to out-qualify Lando, and he needs to put that McLaren on the front row of the grid if he wants to challenge or to defend his position in the World Drivers' Championship against Max Verstappen. If he doesn't improve his qualifying performance in Mexico, then there's a problem. Because Lando Norris, he's already had to give up free practice 1 because the rookie driver, can't remember his name, is driving Lando's car in FP1. The Mexican driver, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, it's just gone. Is it Cola? But basically, so Lando will lose a practice session. Now, if Oscar can make that an advantage somehow by just having a little bit more time in the car, a little bit more time on that track, so he can bring a good qualifying session in that, but he's got to put it on the front row. He has to. Otherwise, he is going to throw away this World Drivers' Championship. No more upgrades from McLaren. Nothing. No front wings, no rear wings, no aero bits, no nothing. They are done. Donezo. So with Red Bull, they will bring an improvement, even if a minor upgrade, to Mexico. And here's the thing. I need to go back to the Dart Lord. Here's something else that the Dart Lord himself said. Helmut Marko said to the press at Austin, Texas, we have another significant upgrade. Another significant upgrade coming for the RB21. I mean, they're going for it. The team are going for it for Max Verstappen to win the World Drivers' Championship. Now, this is a good time to bring in Triplex's point. Red Bull Racing should bring Checo in for FP1 instead of Yuki. They should probably bring Checo in to drive instead of Yuki anyway. But the thing is, Red Bull Racing are, let's just remind ourselves, Red Bull Racing are currently on 331 points, Ferrari are on 334 points, and Mercedes are on 341 points. So that second place in the Constructors is up for grabs for any one of those 3 teams. If Max wins the World Drivers' Championship, then of course Red Bull Racing will, even with Yuki not putting in great performances, could still have a chance of getting that number two spot in the Constructors, which isn't great because number 2 is literally best of the best loser, right? No one really wants to be number 2, but you want to be, you better number 2 than number 4. That you know, to be honest, when you look back at the history books, you'd rather be number 2 than number 4, right? So that's what's going on. And Helmut Marko dropping bombs in Austin, Texas, revealing quite a lot of stuff about Red Bull, but they are still developing that car. So Max Verstappen is looking good. But whatever they have managed to do to tweak the ride height and the plank wear, it's genius. And I actually think that the person responsible for it is definitely not the Dart Lord. It's not Laurent McKees. It's a Horner upgrade. And maybe Horner, I know I talk about him a lot because I like to be fair, maybe it was Horner that anticipated about, because Horner's a wily old team principal. If he knew that the main, where they measure the plank wear is at a certain part underneath the car, well, if he can make sure that that part where they measure is always going to be legal and they can affect the plank wear in the front of the car, well, maybe that's why that new floor design is so impressive. And it was a Horner upgrade. It was a Horner upgrade, so maybe he spotted that opportunity. We'll have to ask him next time he's on F1 Grandstand. We need to get him on. We need to get Horner on. But that's basically what's happened. I'm going to go to the chat. Triplex says, I don't see Mercedes getting second. Antonelli is flopping so hard at the moment. That's true. Ferrari usually score the same amount of points. It's either Max solo second or Ferrari second. I would have to agree. Looking at how Ferrari performed in Austin, Texas, yes, they weren't the fastest cars on the grid, but the 2 drivers were very, very close to each other, finishing 3rd and 4th. Their times in qualifying were pretty comparable. So you've got 2 drivers there which can bring the car home in good points. That might protect Ferrari and give Ferrari the best chance to get P2 in the Constructors. Because you're right, Mercedes have got the same issue that Red Bull have got. George Russell's going to score you. He's going to get you max points from that car. Max points from what that car could achieve. Whereas Kimi Antonelli, he's hit and miss, right? He's not guaranteed to even score points. Never mind score good points. So I think you're right. I think you're right, Triplex. I think Max I think Max could win the championship. Some people are even saying he's favourite to win the championship right now with what's going on. Some people are saying Max Verstappen, who is currently 40 points behind Oscar Piastri, is favourite to win the World Drivers' Championship. But the constructors, I have to say, if I was a betting man, if Ferrari continue the way they're going for the last 5 races, I think Ferrari will nick the second place, the constructors. Red Bull Racing and for Mercedes, I don't know, it's going to be it will be close. There will not be much in it. There will not be much in it. I'll tell you that. So yeah, but the main thing is, if you're McLaren, right, and you've been told that your biggest threat to your drivers winning the World Drivers' Championship is Red Bull and Max Verstappen, you've got 5 races left. Don't you try and allocate some resource in the factory to improving the McLaren some way to give your guys a little helping hand between now and the end of the season? Still 5 races left. Like, you're telling me there's no one in the factory that can tweak something or help something, but to just say, sorry boys, the factory's closed. I did that as Toto Wolff. That's not how Zach Brown talks. But yeah, I mean, you think they'd give them some hope, even if it's like a placebo. If it was me, even if it's like a placebo for the drivers to believe they're getting an upgrade, you know, literally do something that doesn't do anything, but tell the drivers it does. Give them a placebo effect, right? Why not do that? If you're not actually going to give them a better piece of aero, give them something. Tell them something. Give them a placebo effect so they can come out and at least believe you've given them something that's going to make a difference to the car. Because that could be worth a 10th, right? You know, we've all seen Days of Thunder where he told Cole Trickle, we put a special set of matched tyres on this car. You can hold. Go wide, Cole. Go high and wide, Cole. It will hold. Robert Duvall. And it did hold. He did go high and wide, and he won that NASCAR race, right? So maybe there's something in that. I don't know. But you know, it's true. I just think to turn around and say to the drivers, you got nothing. You got nothing, boys. When Red Bull are saying, we've got another significant upgrade coming, we're coming for you. It's like, Jesus, give me some ammunition, guys. Give me something to work with. Don't just tell me the car's great and I'm shit as the driver. It's all driver error and I should be winning. That's probably not the right approach. That's just my opinion. But what do you think? Get in the chat. So Triplex says, remaining races are so Max is favoured though, so I feel the same. I have since Baku. Well, as soon as I saw Max get back-to-back poles and back-to-back wins, I was kind of like, oh shit, Max has come to play. He's not messing around. These upgrades are actually working. The car is significantly better, significantly more balanced. And yeah, I was thinking McLaren would do something in the factory to defend this, to help Oscar, to help Lando. But all I see is really nothing. Just, there's your car. Go and race. If you're not quick, it's on you. We know the car's good. Yeah, your pit stops are shit. Yeah, you still blaming the tyre guns. Even bring a fix for the tyre guns so your pit stops aren't 4 seconds and they're only 2 seconds, right? At least do that. Give the guys something, because Max Verstappen is coming and he's coming hard. That's what I think. But Triplex, didn't Kemi lose a title in a similar way? He just wouldn't bring in upgrades. Yeah, exactly that. He was asking, when the drivers are asking for, look, a little bit of something to help, and a lot of it is belief. Like I said, I'm sort of half joking about the placebo effect, but I think there is something in it. I think if you show the drivers a fake improvement, it might be a tiny bit of carbon fibre on the ridge of the rear wing. It could be, I don't know, it could be something ridiculous. But you show them some fake data that it's worth a 10th. They'll believe it. Right? And it could have an impact on the way they drive that car. And a 10th matters. You know, you could... I believe good team principles, people like Christian Horner, people like Toto Wolff, people like Frank Williams, people like Ron Dennis, they do those sorts of mind games. That's what they do to get the best out of the drivers. Of course they do. Colin Chapman at Lotus, he did it all the time. He did get a couple of drivers in crashes because of it, but he did. This happened. Yeah, and Triplex says there's no way that car reached its limits, right? No, I agree. I think Red Bull will extract another couple of tenths out of their car, and I think McLaren, if they, there's no way it's reached its limits because McLaren was so far in front for the first 10 races in this season that they just, I'm sure they put a lot of work into their 2026 car, which is right, but to just stop with the upgrades since, I think their last upgrade, when was it? It was probably Hungary, right? And it was a tiny upgrade at that. It was when they did, they made a slight change to the suspension. And it was only Lando Norris that took the upgrade. Oscar Piastri didn't like it. Destroy Television says, McLaren are resting from high-fiving themselves to death after securing WCC. Yeah, you're right. They've got the constructors. Zach Brown, how much does he care about the drivers? Not as much as the constructors, but he should. He should. It's not quite as good, is it, to win the constructors and not have one of your drivers win the World Drivers' Championship? They're not. He's got to do something that makes those drivers believe that the team are helping, right? Not that the team are going, hey boys, we're not. It's all on you now, like that. Whereas Max feels absolutely supported by the entire team, Laurent McKees, Helmut Marko, the entire team, even though they're developing their own powertrain for 2026 with Ford, even though that they have to develop a brand new platform and a brand new car for 2026, just like everybody else, they're still bringing upgrades. And that is what McLaren need to tell their drivers. Hey boys, listen, we've got something for you for Mexico. Small, but significant. Even if there's an end plate on the wing, anything, bring them something. And otherwise, we're going to see a catastrophic downfall in the World Drivers' Championship. And we're going to see one of the biggest, most exciting comebacks in F1 history. And it's only one man in the grid who can do it. And that's Max Verstappen. And you know what? I think he's going to do it. I hate to say it, I've been backing Oscar the whole time. But since I've realised that McLaren aren't backing Oscar, it's really making it hard for me to believe that Oscar's going to hold on to it. That's what I think. Triplex says, Hadjar is trying so hard not to get demoted to the Red Bull Racing team in the past couple of races, by the way. I know. He's had a shocker. Last two races, where's Hadjar been? Right? After Helmut Marko basically told the world Hadjar's getting that Red Bull Racing seat, and now we see Hadjar just drop off. Maybe what they wanted to get the new rookie, Arvid Lindblad, who may or may not get promoted, to get promoted straight into that Red Bull Racing car. Maybe that's what they're hoping. And then Liam Lawson and Hadjar get to stay where they are. And Yuki Tsunoda. Oh, I've got an update on Yuki Tsunoda as well. So there's a real update on Yuki Tsunoda while we're talking about Red Bull Racing. So, and it ties into this story. So let me start with this story first. So we need to talk about Franco Colapinto. Like, he's not everyone's favourite driver. Rookie, Crasher Pinto, had a terrible season at Alpine in the worst car on the grid. So look, we'll give him a slight break. Worst car on the grid. So as a rookie, bring the car home, right? Golden rule. Do not put it in the wall. Bring the car home. Try and score 1 or 2 points. Now, Colapinto has not only put the car in the wall maybe, 4 or 5 times, I think. Maybe more, 6 times this season. Even crashed it in a Pirelli tyre test. Not been great, right? Not been great. Not scored any points. And to add insult to injury, he has driven the Alpine team crazy at Austin, Texas. Because at Austin, Texas, towards the end of the race, Pierre Gasly's tyres had gone off, and by the way, we're talking about P18, right? P18, end of the race. They had to pit Pierre Gasly early to prevent an undercut. and they put him on the softs, and it meant towards the last few laps of the race, his tyres had gone off, right? Now, they told Franco Colapinto was in P19, Pierre Gasly was in P18. The team order came over the radio to Franco Colapinto, hold position, do not pass Pierre Gasly. And this is for P18, it's not for points, not for anything. Hold position. And Franco Colapinto, who's auditioning to keep his seat Alpine, basically said, nah, I'm going past him. And overtook Gasly. When the team orders were hold position, that is outrageous for a rookie to do that. As a rookie, you do as you are told, especially when you're talking about P18. You're not even talking about scoring points. You've been told to do something. You're on thin ice as it is because you've not had a great season and you want to keep a drive in Formula One, and your audition to get a drive somewhere else has not been good. So your only option really is to try and keep that Alpine seat. And you go and basically stick two fingers up at your team and say, no, I'm not going to hold position. I'm going to go past Gasly. F you. It's absolutely outrageous. And this is what he said. We gave the instruction for the drivers to maintain positions as we were managing fuel with both cars and the added variable of the number of laps remaining with the leaders in close proximity. As a team, instructions made by the pit wall is final, and today we are disappointed that this didn't happen. So it's something we will review and deal with internally. Whoa. So they publicly have outed Colapinto and said, we gave him the team orders. He didn't follow them. And basically, we're furious and we're going to deal with it internally. What does that mean for Colapinto? It means he's not keeping his drive at Alpine. He's not keeping his drive, right? So, Yuki Tsunoda could be the luckiest MF in Formula One. Because now, the new situation over at Alpine is that, honestly, he could be the luckiest dude in Formula One, Yuki, because Colapinto defied that team order, it's pretty much a nail in Colapinto's coffin that he's not going to be driving at Alpine next season. Because the one thing I know about Flavio Briatore is you don't go up against Flavio Briatore. You don't. He will cut you out quicker than cancer, right? And as a rookie, to basically ignore team orders on the pit wall, Flavio Briatore is going to literally, that's it. Colapinto he's out. There's no way he's getting his seat in Alpine in 2026. So, Yuki Tsunoda, this is unbelievable. So now, Yuki Tsunoda is back in the frame for a seat in F1. Because we know he's lost his seat at Red Bull. We know he's not getting a Racing Bull seat. It's nailed on. We know he's got a tentative offer from Aston Martin because of the Honda connection to be Aston Martin's reserve driver. But now Alpine need a driver. And they're going to be running the Mercedes power unit next season. And they might even be able to put together a pretty decent chassis, suspension and aero package around that good power unit, and Alpine might be pretty competitive. So it could be Gasly and Yuki again. Triplex, exactly, bringing the band back together, right? Because Gasly and Yuki, here's the thing, Gasly and Yuki are actually good friends. They're actually really good friends. Gasly's come out and defended Yuki in the press about Yuki's position at Red Bull, because Gasly had the same issue, right? He did a couple of races in the Red Bull team, got promoted from the Racing Bulls, didn't turn out good for him. He got annihilated in the Formula One media and press, and he's had to work really hard to establish himself as a good driver in Formula One, which he has done. And he is the only person to score points in the Alpine. So yeah, getting the band back together. Yuki he must have more lives than a cat. More lives than a cat. Because Yuki's looking like the option now. Because of Franco Colapinto's disobedience, Yuki's now got an opportunity in Alpine. It's insane. This driver market's insane. All because Franco Colapinto, for P18 in the last few laps, didn't follow an order. And absolutely, Kyle, that's the other big reason. Yuki brings money with him. He brings that lovely Honda money with him. Because even though Honda obviously supplying power units to Aston Martin, Honda have been Yuki's biggest personal sponsor since his early career. And that money goes with him to whichever team he goes to. And I can guarantee that Yuki brings more money to Alpine than Colapinto. And Colapinto brings quite a lot of money. But Yuki brings more, baby. And Honda and literally everyone in Japan want Yuki on the grid. They want him on the grid. There's some politicking within that, but they want him on the grid. So that's the situation. Yuki, honestly, if that transpires that he gets that signed, sealed and delivered, Yuki has got more lives than a freaking cat. Unbelievable. What a way to get an opportunity, all because Franco Colapinto's a freaking idiot, not following team orders. Sudden rush of, blood rush to the head where he's like, nah, I'll go past Gasly. I'll take this P18. It might just be great for my career. Dude, seriously, if you're not scoring points, there's nothing that's going to help your career. Not at this point. You're going to have to go and do something else. But it's great news. But it is great news for Yuki. But yeah, crazy turn of events, right? Absolutely crazy turn of events. So Gemma says, rolling with his homie again. Yeah, exactly. They're putting the band back together. Yuki and Gasly in the Alpine. And you know what? I actually think that wouldn't be too silly for Alpine. Look, this season, the rookies, Duhan and Colapinto have both been a complete bust in a car that isn't very good. But Gasly has managed to score points when the opportunity arrived. And that's what a better experienced F1 driver can bring you. And in a first season of a major regulation change where, let's be honest, no one knows which teams are going to be uber competitive and which teams are going to be right at the back. There could be a 4-second gap between P1 and P22, right? It could be like that because major regulation changes. Everyone's got their own idea and interpret those regulations, and every team's going to interpret them slightly differently. And that's when we're going to see the biggest variation and variance between car performance. Obviously, as we know, as we get into these regulations throughout the 5-year cycle, the cars get more and more identical. The things that worked on for a McLaren, then everyone copies it, and vice versa if it's a Ferrari, and everyone starts, basically everyone's going to copy Adrian Newey's car. That's what's going to happen, in my opinion. Adrian Newey's going to find the loopholes in those regulations. He's going to put an Aston Martin out there that everyone goes, oh wow, that's different, and it's going to be quick, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to be copying his car. That's what I think. And Triplex says, I feel like the new team won't be the slowest. I mean, if Cadillac managed to bring something, if Cadillac cannot last, then that's a good result. If it's your first season in Formula One and you're not at the back, you're doing something very, very good. That's true. I think the really exciting thing about Cadillac is they're only going to be running that Ferrari power unit for 2 seasons into the regulation. Even in this new regulation cycle, they're going to be bringing a Cadillac power unit year 3 into that 5-year cycle, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, Kyle's saying that he thinks that Cadillac might be more competitive than Haas. I think they've got a chance because we all know that Haas is the budget F1 team, basically built from the Ferrari parts bin. They only really build a chassis. Everything else, suspension, gearbox, engine, even bits of aero, all coming from that Ferrari. Whereas Cadillac are only taking the engine. Everything else is going to be Cadillac. Chassis, aero, suspension, cockpit design. The whole thing is going to be them. So we could see a decent Cadillac. We could. I'm not saying I don't expect it to be top tier. I don't expect it to be top 3, but it might not be last. Yeah, and Kyle, you're right. If money equals success, Cadillac should do okay. I mean, there is a budget cap on what they can spend, but I always wonder if you're a company as big as Mercedes, Ferrari, Cadillac, Audi, all of that knowledge within their group of companies that they've learned from their road cars, that must be an advantage, right? Like that knowledge is free. It's on their database. Oh, well, that's interesting data from our our Ferrari F80, right? That's some interesting data we've got from that Lamborghini hybrid engine for Audi to go and tap into. All of the and Porsche as well. Audi obviously part of the VW group. It's got Lamborghini, you got Porsche, got VW, you got Audi. So all of that knowledge within that group, that's all free, isn't it? They're not even paying to sort of get hold of that. So Triple X says Haas is a knockoff Ferrari. The Poundland Ferrari. Yeah. And you're right, Kyle. Cadillac is winning. Cadillac come to play. And that's the thing. Audi do the same thing. You're talking about massive works teams here that don't enter a series to lose. If Audi are entering Formula One and Cadillac are entering Formula One, they are coming to play. They're not here to mess around. And then there's the RB with the energy drink. And then there's Red Bull designing their first engine for the first time with Ford. With Ford. We have to say that. With Ford. So they've got the backing of Ford. The rumours are not good about their power unit at the moment. But will they improve it? Of course. Will Ford want to have their name on the worst power unit in Formula One? Hell no. Hell no. Ford will not want to have their name on the worst power unit in Formula One. So Triplex says Red Bull's going to run on the energy drink. Well, they are going to run on sustainable fuels. Maybe that's the future. Red Bull engine that runs on caffeine. Yeah, and the Corvette. Yeah, exactly. The Corvette teams. They do well. Yeah, in all of the endurance racing. They're pretty solid, aren't they? But Ferrari are good in the endurance racing as well, aren't they? So it is going to be an interesting time in 2026 as to how these new teams incorporate the good power units. Because you've only got to look at McLaren, right? I think it's fascinating. McLaren running a Mercedes power unit and they're kicking Mercedes' ass all year. Reason being is because we're in the ground effect era of Formula One cars where aerodynamics is everything. Now we're removing aerodynamics to a degree. The power unit is king. We've been in an era where aerodynamics has been king, which is why we've just seen this season, like say McLaren using a Mercedes power unit and just kicking Mercedes' ass consistently. And that's why. It's because aerodynamics is king. We're moving to an era where power unit is king. The tyres are narrower. There's far less aero. There's no ground effect. You've got active aero at the front and rear wing. The cars are going to be slower through the corners, quicker down the straight. It's going to be about power, right? That's going to be the differentiating factor. And with the battery power as well, managing the power is what it really comes down to. Managing the electrification power is where the best team will do that most effectively. How they manage that power. There are other aero possibilities that I believe Adrian Newey has noticed. He's doing some special work around the cockpit and suspension. But we're also that's the other thing about grip. We're going back to mechanical grip, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means suspension components become pretty freaking important. Damping now becomes super important, whereas we've come from a ground effect era where there is literally zero dampening in those cars, right? Zero. It's hard as possible, low as possible, suck the car to the ground, right? There is really the suspension doesn't do an awful lot other than try and keep the car at the lowest point. That's really what it is. And try not to break the driver's back. But now we're going to cars where they've got to consider dampening. They've got to consider movement. They've got to consider mechanical grip. There has to be more roll in the car. It's a completely new thing. And still run the car at a low ride height. So it is a completely new thing. Yeah. So Triple X. Okay, so I'm going to go back. That Kyle says, with all the new battery power, we should get Tesla or VW in F1. Don't say that. I don't want to see a Tesla on the F1 grid. Tesla have never, because I'm all about the internal combustion engine. And here's the other thing as well. The next regulation change in 2031, we are rewinding to naturally aspirated V8s. That's what apparently is going to happen. So we're getting rid of the electrification after this cycle. I think it's because they realised it was a mistake, but they were too far down the process of developing this new era of car. They have to run it. They have to run it for 5 years. But they do know the fans want naturally aspirated engines, and that was the sweet spot with sustainable fuels. So that's where we're heading. But we just have to suck it up with this electrification for the next 5 years, unfortunately. Yeah, and the Triplex is right. When the engine is king, you think Ferrari would be good. But Ferrari have lost their lead engine designer, Zimmerman. They lost Binotto. They sacked him, didn't they? They swapped him for Fred Vasseur. They're all over at Audi. And they all spilt the tea, didn't they? And said that Ferrari's power unit hadn't even been on a dyno. We don't know how good this Ferrari power unit is because no one's seen it. No one knows, but we do know Audi's power unit's been on the dyno for for 6 months, and all they're doing is working on reliability. We know Honda's is good, we know Mercedes is good. So yeah, that's the situation there with the Ferrari's power unit. I'm not sure it's going to be good. So, and then Gemma's talking about one place left for a team on the grid. That's absolutely true. There is one place left for a team. Who's going to get it? I know Destroyed Television's like me, still holding out for Horner Racing. I would love that to happen. I hope so too. Horner Racing, full backing. That would be brilliant. And then Jem is saying, have Jerry Halliwell as the HR director. Interesting. I don't think Horner likes HR too much. Triple X says Toto isn't giving Horner an engine. He doesn't have the face to ask Red Bull Racing, and he'll be stuck with Ferrari. Well, I actually think the most likely move for Horner halfway through, in summer next season, if he doesn't get a team and he doesn't get a stake in a team, I think Ferrari's his most likely place because John Elkann needs a winner leading that team, and I'm not sure Fred Vasseur is it, and I don't think John thinks that either. And neither does Tubby George. Tubby George thinks that's the most likely result. My man on the ground. Kyle says, if I was in charge, we'd go back to 100% combustion power. No one says that Formula E car sounds good. No, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, let me watch a little bit of more Formula E and get excited by that electric sound. No. But I think, honestly, like I said, Toto Wolff let it slip that the general consensus between all manufacturers is 2031, naturally aspirated V8 is the sweet spot for Formula One with sustainable fuels, and get rid of this electrification bollocks. No one wants it. Even the teams don't want it. The drivers don't want it. But they have to run this cycle out because they've all spent so much money developing it. So we're stuck with this regenerative braking, 50% electrification for the next 5 years. And now the FIA even realised it was an issue and said we could effectively only run this new cycle for 3 years. But all the teams said, well, we can't do that. We've already spent too much money developing these power units. Well, that was more Toto Wolff because obviously they spent fortunes on the Mercedes power unit and obviously supplying to the teams. He wants to get max value out of that investment, and he wants 5 years of that if he can. So yeah, that is how it is looking. So yeah, we've solved the Red Bull riddle. We've talked. Oh, I've not even talked about Tapegate. I did a video on it earlier on, which we called Red Bull's Dirty Tricks and Tape or on Tape. Please go and watch that video if you haven't seen it. I'll give you the quick synopsis. McLaren placed tape on the pit wall so Lando Norris can align himself in his grid spot, okay, perfectly correctly without being too far over, too far behind. And McLaren seems to be the only team that do this. But there's no rules that stop McLaren from putting tape on the pit wall, which also means there's no rules for other teams to tamper with the tape and pull it off. It's perfectly acceptable. Now, what's happened is a Red Bull engineer snuck in through gate 1, which was closed during the formation lap and tried to remove McLaren's tape to stop Lando Norris being able to line up his car. Now, like I said, removing the McLaren's tape they stuck on the pit walls perfectly okay. What's not okay is to go into prohibited areas after the race, the formation lap has started, and to ignore marshals. So watch my video. It's very, very informative. It's only 10 minutes long. It's called Red Bull's Dirty Tricks on tape. I posted it earlier today, and we'll you watch it tonight and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I will be back with your F1 news, any breaking news tomorrow daytime. Otherwise, the live stream, as always, will be at 7:30 GMT tomorrow night. Please smash a like on the video, hit the bell button to stay notified. It makes a huge difference to the success of the channel, and I'm so grateful to every one of you. And I will see you all tomorrow night at 7:30. Ta-ta.